with In with Flynn. Hello, Mr. Mayor. How are you today?
Morning. It's great to be here.
It is.
Feeling great.
Good. You know what? It's supposed to be like pushing 80 today in some part of Arkansas.
I had heard 70, so.
76 here, I think, in the River Valley. It's pushing 80. It's crazy. It's just crazy. But anyway, let's go over and find out what's happening in the city. I know for sure that voting started yesterday.
Yeah, we're on early voting right now. It started February 20. And it goes all this week, and then it goes all next week, and then the actual election day is Tuesday, March 5, which is also, I think they call it Super Tuesday, because something like 20 states have their primary that day. So, of course, it's the presidential primary, and Congressman Womack's on there running for re-election. There's a couple Supreme Court elections which are nonpartisan, and the county prosecutor, that's an important job, that's nonpartisan, that's on there. But the one I'm interested in, of course, is we have the 1/2 mil police levy that's on the ballot, and that's for the police pensions, and the money can only be used for that, and would cost the average person, average homeowner in Bella Vista $20 a year on their property taxes. So, of course, we're hoping that'll pass. We're usually very supportive of the police in Bella Vista, police and fire both. And voting is underway, so it's good for people to know about that. And, you know, in Bella Vista, it's at the Rec Center, which used to be called Reardon Hall, and it's also at Community Church, which is on East Lancashire. That's the early voting also. So it's really convenient for voting. It's like 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday for a couple of weeks. So, you know, a lot of opportunities to vote, and Bella Vista people are usually very good about showing up for elections. So I'm actually proud of them for that. Their rate of voting is higher than the other places, even in Northwest Arkansas.
That's great.
Yeah.
You know, I know we've gone over it a couple of times, but give me the elevator speech again about what this does for our police. That's
a good question. You know, the cost right now in 2024 for the police pension cost the city is $600,000. And in 2014, we had an election for 1/2 mil, which passed. And it brings in $314,000. So we're bringing in much less than the cost. So the reason we asked for another 1/2 mil, under state law, you're allowed to go up to 1 mil for police pensions. And that way we'd have enough money to cover the pension. And so it seemed like a fiscally prudent thing to do. You know, we try to never raise taxes, but this is a modest increase, and it's for a really good cause. You know, nowadays, because of all the negative publicity, it's a little harder to get police than it used to be. We've been pretty happy in Bella Vista about our ability to get them, and it's partially because they feel so supported from that community. You know, everyone's aware that this is a community that supports police and fire, and that really helps when you go to hire people.
You know, I think the police chief the other day at one of your sessions, when you were talking about what this was all about, depending on which poll or whatever it is, but we're considered one of the safest cities in Arkansas, correct?
Yeah, we've had a great safety record, and that takes into account property crimes and serious physical crimes, you know, murder, rape, assault, that type of thing. And our statistics are way stronger than most cities in the country even, and in the state of Arkansas. So we're real pleased about that. You know, I always feel like when people are looking for a place to live, two big factors are safety and the quality of the schools, and I feel like Bella Vista is in a strong position in those things. That's one reason why people want to move here. And it seems like with some of the problems that have gone on in the big cities, the safety is even more forefront in people's minds than it used to be. So, you know, I like to live in a safe community too.
That's right. And a lot of that has to do with our great police force and the fact that they do want to work here because it's a good working environment for the police.
Yeah, I'm surprised how often I get positive comments as mayor. Someone will have had an interaction with the police, and they always comment on how appropriate they are and professional and whatnot. And that is just great to hear. Probably every couple weeks or so, I get another person commenting on that.
Yes.
So,
really good stuff we got going on there. Okay, so let's see. State of the city, that's kind of something you do every year, isn't it?
yeah, that's actually a legal requirement that the mayor give a state of the city prior to the end of March of each year. And so I'll read it, it'll be in print so people can see it, and I'll also read it at the city council meeting in March.
Okay.
And it just more or less brings people up to date on, you know, what the state of the city is. It's kind of like the ones they do on the U.S. level, you know, state of the United States.
State of the nation,
And,
yeah.
yeah, state of the nation, that's right. And so it's a good time for people to, you know, get a summary of what's going on and how we're doing. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you how we're doing because I don't want to have a spoiler alert. You know, I want everyone to be surprised.
Oh, that's funny. I think they kind of know because we tell them every month, don't we?
Yeah, we try to keep them up to date as we go along.
We do. Okay, so year-end financials, you're closing out and getting ready for audit and things like that. What's
Yeah, we always go till the end of February to make sure all the bills are in and whatnot, and then we close the books. So we'll have year-end financials unaudited in March, and then the auditors start their work, and later in the year we'll have audited. And you know, we always get a clean bill of health from them, but I always notice the financial people are very cautious, and that, like the director of finance, Kim Hall, you know, we'll say, okay, here are the year-end financials, and she'll say, yeah, but they're unaudited.
Yes.
You know, people in the accounting business are very
Yes.
quick to make that clarification. But it's kind of interesting. One of the interesting things, you know, we have monthly financials, and it's a great way to keep up and see how you're doing. But as far as the auditors are concerned, the only one that counts is the year end.
Yes.
All those others are just for fun.
Yes.
It's just for yourself. And the year end are the only real financials. Whereas, you know, public companies, they have quarterly financials in the year end, and they're all filed with the SEC, and they're official, you know. So in the private sector, it's kind of every quarter you have a real document. In the city level, it's just that one a year. So that's the only real financial. And it's kind of helpful. After a few years, you know, you can set the years side by side and see the trends and see what's happening in different departments, and of course with the overall cash flow and whatnot. So
Yeah.
so I kind of like and when you're talking to people, I think it's much better to talk about the whole year. If you're talking about financials, something people can relate to, and you know, instead of, oh, after 10 months we have such and such. You know, just to hear the whole year how much the revenue is and the expenses and whatnot.
Against budget.
Yeah.
Because that budget's pretty important too.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're overall doing on cue. 23 came out like you thought it would, a little better, a little worse.
Yeah, I'd say generally speaking, it was probably a little better just because the you know, the national prognosticators were expecting a bigger recession, a bigger slowdown in 23, and things just kept chugging along. And especially in Northwest Arkansas, things seem to be doing really better than the rest of the country, particularly in things like housing. You know, they say the housing market's pretty much dead in the water a lot of places, and we still seem to have pretty good demand around here. People want to move here, and you know, that's encouraging. It's nice to be in a place that people like and desire. And but so I would say my impression certainly is at this point that Bella Vista and Northwest Arkansas are doing much better than the average. But the year 2023 in general was not the negative financial year people expected. things just kept kind of humming along, really, the whole year.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so the next city council meeting, I believe, is it's always the fourth Monday, correct?
Yes.
And you're changing the time, though.
Yeah, it's for the last few years it's been at 6:30 p.m. and we changed it to 6 p.m. So we wanted to keep it late enough so folks could come here after work and make it in time. And particularly a lot of people, work in town in Bentonville or Rogers or whatnot. We want to make sure they had time to get up the freeway and get to the meeting if they wanted to. Mm-hmm. Of course, now, as you know, on community TV, the meetings are streamed live, and also you can watch them on a delay. Mm-hmm. And also what we've started to do now is stream the Planning Commission meeting live, and also you can watch that on delay. And a lot of people don't know or pay that much attention to the Planning Commission, and as you know, some really important things happen there.
Absolutely.
Since you're on it, you probably noticed that by now. But yes, there's some big things to go on in the Planning Commission, and a lot of times they get things before the council, so it kind of gives you a heads up, what's coming down the pike. So, but having those streamed and now having the city council meeting start at 6, I think that'll work out well. But it is good to alert people to that new time.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, for sure. One of the really cool things, talking about the Planning Commission just a little bit, Doug Tapp, who is over your CDS, your Community Development Services,
Yeah.
Gave us a great option the other day, which really helps us as planning commissioners. I'm going to ride with him this afternoon to go around and physically see, when you're talking about a 14% grade on a driveway, what does that mean? What does it look like? Mm-hmm. So he gave us that opportunity to actually not only read about it on paper and work on decisions, but actually see what a 14 or a 17% grade is. So they're doing a good job too. They've got a really hard. All your departments work really hard, but there's a lot of activity, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later on in the show.
Yeah.
One of the things that is kind of new. Oh, wait a minute here. Let's talk about the rezoning for the trailhead.
Yeah,
the new Greenway extension.
The what I call the spur off the Razorback Greenway right now goes up to Metfield and from Blowing Springs area, and now they're planning a further extension where it's going to continue down Commonwealth and then hang a right on Trafalgar and go up Trafalgar for a ways.
Yes.
And where it ends, they felt like, well, there should be a trailhead, which basically is a place to park.
Yes.
And there was a kind of a challenging lot there. It's flat on the top, but a couple of lots really, and then takes a steep dive. This so often happens in Bella Vista.
Yeah.
So they decided to make that trailhead what was zoned R1, which is for single-family residential. Of course, it's going to be a parking lot. So they're changing the zoning to P1, which is preservation, conservation, so to speak. And so I don't think there'll be any concern about it from the neighbors and whatnot, because it's, there's no houses around there, and it's kind of logical. But that's one of the first steps to having that trail extension, is to get that piece of property so people could park there at the end of the trails. That's been, I live over near there, and that trail goes up Houston and turns onto Commonwealth. It's it's like the Razorback. It's maybe like a mini Razorback. It's a cement trail. It's, I'm going to guess, 6 feet wide maybe, and I could be slightly off on that. That's just eyeing it.
Yeah.
But it is tremendously popular. In fact, the other day the temperature was a little bit warm. I was driving down the street, And there are people walking on there holding hands, and little kids walking on it, and people on bikes, and people walking their dogs, and it's really been popular. So I think the extension of it will be really well received by people.
It really will. You know, we're going to talk about lighting right after the break, but for right now, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Hi there, we're back. I want to talk about lighting ordinances.
Yeah, that's an interesting topic, actually. We had a lighting ordinance proposed, and some of the folks in your Community Development Services Department worked on it, and one of our councilmen, Craig Honchel, took a real interest in the subject. This particular ordinance applies to commercial, and what they're going for is trying to have lighting face downward and not invade neighboring spaces. And all the other larger cities in Northwest Arkansas already have an ordinance about this, and we did not. And with some future commercial development, we thought it might be prudent to get something in place, so it's already in place when that comes along. As you know, the Planning Commission, as another example, looked at this issue and sent a proposal over to City Council. And I think it's well thought out, and it's a good idea. The example the one councilman gave is up in Jane. There's one location where the lights face down and they're shielded and everything's fine. Another location where they just, you know, blare and just are all over the place and in
looks
people's
like
faces. Yeah. So it's a new thing that people are trying to, I mean, obviously lighting has a function, and you want the commercial entities to be able to be properly lit. People can see where they're going, that type of thing. But you can do it in a way that people can see where they're going, and it's not so invasive for neighbors and whatnot. So.
And this is only for future commercial. This is not for residential at all.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right, so that sounds really good. You know, at the work session last night, it was really rewarding to see you introduced your newly formed Transportation Committee. Is that what they're called?
Yeah, it's actually called the Active Transportation Board. And it's a citizen committee, and it has 7 folks on it and 2 youth. And Justin Culpepper, our new trails manager, has worked on putting that together with some assistance from some other folks. But you know, people say, oh, that's about the trails, and it's a little more than that. Active transportation refers to biking and walking, mainly. You know, we're looking at also increasing our sidewalks and people's ability to go from point A to point B, and that sort of thing. So the idea of Active Transportation Board was very popular. We actually had 37 people apply. So it's actually hard to narrow it down. And the people on the committee and the 2 younger folks also all attended the meeting last night and got up, said a few words about themselves. And they have just tremendously impressive backgrounds. It's a volunteer committee, like most of our citizen committees, but very impressive backgrounds, very enthused, and I think it'll be great. I think they'll bring some great ideas to the table because of their involvement in it. You know, they're going to think of things that maybe you or I wouldn't, or you know, other people wouldn't be aware of. The one man had lived in Chicago for many years and commuted in the suburbs of Chicago, commuted to work by bicycle for 25 or 30 years or something.
Can you imagine in Chicago? Woo!
And there's another lady who, you know, is with Northwest Arkansas Community College, and actually her job is in that whole area of encouraging active transportation. But the things that are going on in Northwest Arkansas, I've been on some conference calls and whatnot, And there's so many groups in Northwest Arkansas having to do with bikes and walking and trails. It's astounding the interest level there is. And Walmart has an initiative where 10% of their employees at headquarters will bike to work on a regular basis. And there's some folks actually live in Bella Vista that are biking to work at Walmart right now. So it's really almost a culture change in a way. But it was just neat to see that group and how enthused they were. And the two younger folks were middle school age, and they were tremendously active in bicycling and were involved in bike races around the state. And they had to get up and speak extemporaneously, and I thought they were very impressive for their age to be able to get. I was kidding the one young lady after the meeting. She happened to go first, but just by happenstance, she's probably 12 years old, and to speak in front of a large group like that, and be the first one. I told her I thought she did an excellent job. Very impressive.
Yeah, that sixth grader has more credentials than many of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm so glad to see that. It's an advisory board.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about yard waste subcommittee.
This has been a subject of great interest for quite a while, and one of the council members, Wendy Hughes, brought up, hey, maybe we should try again with this yard waste. We'd looked at that in the past, and basically what's happened is, the stump dumps have gone away.
Yes. And
they're not coming back, and some people have noticed that.
No kidding.
So people do bring it up, and they'd like to figure out some way to do something about that. There's a bunch of different alternatives, and I don't think it's a bad idea. That we found it to be challenging when we looked at it before, but I don't think it's a bad idea. Take another look and see if people could come up with a viable alternative. There's different things they look at, like mulching or composting or having a wood chipper, or some cities have a vacuum that goes along the edge of the road and sucks up all the leaves. You just have to get them out to the street. And there's all kinds of different alternatives that are conceivable. And, it'd be nice if we could figure out a way to help the citizens out. It's a big challenge because Bella Vista is a big spread out place.
That's right.
And we sure have a lot of leaves and branches and that sort of thing.
Absolutely, we do. Okay, so the STR Pretrial. Very curious about that.
Oh yeah, this is that same STR litigation. The judge quite a while ago had said their first ordinance was not good, and instead of appealing that, we passed a new ordinance that was took out some of the parts people thought were objectionable and still had some regulation of STRs, which I thought was a good compromise. And anyway, the litigation has continued on as to the new ordinance, and both sides filed for summary judgment and didn't have a hearing because they thought there wasn't any factual disputes. So we thought the judge would just issue a ruling. Well, she did. She decided that, well, maybe there are factual disputes and we need to have a hearing and a trial and all that. So basically, it's still pending. And on February 29th, they're having the first pretrial. I think it's just by Zoom, so it's not going to be a big thing where you'd go watch or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just thought I'd bring people up to speed that litigation is still continuing, and our ordinance is in place. And in fact, right now we have about 390 people have signed up for permits.
Good.
And there's, according to our online assistance company called Granicus, is a little over 500 STRs. So they haven't all signed up yet. But so there certainly is an active short-term rental situation in Bella Vista, and it's not all bad. There's a lot of good things about it. And in fact, many of them are very responsible owners, and it doesn't seem to be any problems at all. And it's just a few that haven't run it well, and you know, what's the old saying, one bad apple spoils the bunch, or so there's been some problems with a few of them, and so, you know, it's different things going on in different cities. I noticed Fayetteville had a ordinance that was much stricter than ours, and they've actually capped out. Our ordinance says you could have up to 600, and we have so far 390. I don't know that natural market forces we would go above 600. I do know some short-term rental owners decided to just flip to a regular rental, and you know, it's a lot of work having short. You can make good money, but it's a lot of work having a different person in there every 2-3 days.
Yeah.
And then you have to clean the place or hire somebody to clean it. And there's a lot of ins and outs to it.
Yes.
But you know, Bella Vista's become a attractive place, and everybody thinks it's all about the trails, but it's really not just that. People can come here to play golf. They can come here to visit relatives. They come here for weddings. I was talking to an STR owner the other day, and she said some people come because they're working. They're working for a few days and maybe working with Walmart or something like that.
Yes.
And she gets some rentals that way.
Yes.
So it's a really a lot of different reasons that people come to the area, but a lot of them are recreational in the case of Bella Vista, particularly in the nice season, you know, the nice weather. So,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. Okay, so let's talk. We've got just a few minutes left here, so let's talk about this Freeze+Nichols Study that's going to happen on the 29th.
Yeah, you know, they have, that's the firm from Tulsa we hired to try to completely do a zoning and code reform. And the 29th actually is a planning commission meeting, and they invited city council and some other folks to attend. Of course, it's a public meeting, but Freeze+Nichols is going to give a diagnostic report. It'll be about a year from now when they're completely done with their work, but I think the point of this report is to show where they're at and what they think the problems are, and how maybe what their plan of attack is, what kind of things they think they need to change. You know, I was thinking about this the other day, and I know you noticed this. First, the POA had a situation where all their things were zoned wrong, and they went through and changed them one at a time. It was an arduous process. It was probably 20 or 25.
Yeah.
But it was things like they'd have a golf course and a restaurant, and it was zoned R1, which means single-family residential. So it's what they call non-conforming use, where you were doing that before the zoning, but it makes no sense for it to be zoned R1. Everyone can see it's not R1, hadn't been R1 since it was developed.
Exactly.
So why was it zoned?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things like that in the city, and the other day at the meeting we had a parcel that was zoned, you know, P1 conservation, so you couldn't put anything on it. And here it is in the development with 20 or 25 houses, all R1, and that one little lot. So people don't know if it's a typo or what.
Yes, yes.
You know, that why is this P1? And then somebody wants to put a house on it, and they need to get it rezoned.
Exactly.
So many little things like that, and some of the things in the code, you know, maybe they lifted things from Rogers or Bentonville when they first became a city. And sometimes one thing contradicts another, so getting all those things cleaned up so it makes sense. I think it'll be good for the citizens, it'll be good for builders. You know, it'll be good for everyone, really, and give them more consistency and more continuity. It'll probably help the Planning Commission, because you guys end up with all these variances and appeals, and you know, a lot of them are about things that maybe shouldn't have been the way they were in the first place.
Yeah, it's exciting for us to do the cleanup, because things change. And we've been a city since '07, correct?
Yeah.
And hey, it's 24.
Yeah.
So it's kind of time to look it over, scrub it, and move forward. You know, I think we're about out of time. You know, I could sit down and talk with you for hours, because I really enjoy it, and it's nice to know what's going on. But before we leave today, let's make sure that we let everybody know that the City Council meeting is next Monday, and at 6 o'clock at the Public Safety Building, correct?
Yes.
And come and watch. It's fun. You learn about your city. You know what's going on. It's a chance for you to provide input, to gain knowledge, instead of just listening to Facebook and determining what's going on. Because most of the time that's not anywhere near the truth.
Yeah, and that's Monday, February 26th.
Yes.
So.
Okay, well, we'll see you next month for the State of the City.
Yeah, sounds exciting, right?
Yes. All right, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon. Bye, Bella Vista.
Thank you.